and welcome out to a Wednesday edition of the Tackle Trading Halftime Report. As always on a Wednesday, this is Coach Frank hanging out with the one, the only, the impeccable Coach Matt Justice as we get ready to dial in these markets. It is a flag into the 9 type of day. Nobody seems too stoked one way or the other today, Maddie. Trying to bounce off that 9, though, in the broad market. Welcome out, Team Tackle. Always great to see you. Hope everybody's having a fantastic week. And if you're new here, welcome. Great to have you with us. Always helpful to hit that sub button, like it if you like it, share it with a friend, all of that fun YouTube stuff. And if you're not yet a member of Team Tackle, never a better time than today to head over to tackletraining.com. You can sign up for a free 15-day trial. Come see all the fun stuff that we're doing each and every day with our community here. So come on over and join us. Maddie, my man, how you doing today, partner?
Doing good. Excited to be here with the crew to break down all the amazing, fantastic news that is happening in the market here today. Not a lot of information coming into the market here on a hump day. It's not even hump day this week. We get Friday off
the rare Friday, the rare Friday, right? That's going to be
if there was ever a day that the market needed a doji, today is that day. There's just not a lot of news coming out to the market. For example, the big earnings news today is GameStop is the big earnings news today. And when GameStop's going to lead the earnings conversation, it's not that big of a day, quite frankly. So we'll have fun on this Doji Wednesday.
Absolutely. That's a good look though on the S&P. So we'll see where this one takes us. No doubt about it. Well, I mean, again, it's hard to say much. Doji into the 9. This is one of those 9 bounce scenarios, right? Where you would kind of expect this is that first go in the go or don't type of phase. Obviously, if it wants to pull back more, that doesn't make it bearish. But this is kind of that first. If we can just get a little bit of movement, get through some of that little short-term intraday downtrend, it's just going to look like a 9 bouncer to my eyes.
Well, yeah, and the last 2 days kind of really lead into that flag-based conversation where you got a slight pullback here in the market. You kind of come in and sniff that 90 MA. You start to see that rotation a little bit here over the last 2 candles. When you're looking at ultimately confirmation on any degree of flag or retracement, ultimately confirmation is always going to be a close above the previous day's candle, and that's something we have not seen. But overall, this is a pretty good backdrop for a flag-based pattern in the market. Not a lot of concern from a trending or a pattern perspective. Haven't really seen any doses of volatility over the last couple trading sessions. Just pretty mundane journey through the market this week so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of this pattern out there. I didn't do a full Wednesday scan being the short week. I'll do a big scan tomorrow. So I just kind of did my my little half scan, and a lot of little flags in finance and industrials in other areas. So it's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a fun one. I don't really mind if we just want to doji tomorrow too, since Friday's off, and we'll just start fresh here on Monday. If you're listening market, I think we could probably sign up for that. Seeing a little bit of overperformance in the rut here today, Maddie, as it still tries like heck to dial in that break. We've been able to close above that zone, but not been able to see any follow through. But boy, it keeps on keeping on. And I don't really think there's too much to update here. Maybe you see something a little differently, but it just continues to be impressive.
I think in general, it goes to the argument of the increasing the breadth of the market, seeing more than just and it's been more than a week, more than 2 weeks. It's been a couple months since tech has not been the only flavor of the day here in the marketplace. But even when you're looking at the broad market from S&P 500 perspective versus the small and mid cap index of the Russell 2000, you are seeing that the breadth of the market improve here. You're seeing it expand outside of just select names over the course of last year, obviously into a bulk of the S&P 500 from November until now. And you're now starting to see a better patterns and better development on the small and the mid cap. So it's tough from an overall technical perspective because you got chop here, but overall, this entire trend has been one of catching up to the leadership of the S&P 500. And I'm not seeing anything in support or the patterns here to indicate that that's going to stop anytime soon.
It certainly does not look that way. That is
If
a
the
good
market
look at.
wants to continually trend here, all things being relatively equal, okay? If the market wants to continually trend here, doesn't the Russell 2000, just by the nature of where it is in relationship to the chart,
It
catch
feels
up a
like
little
it.
bit?
It feels like it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. If the market does want to continue just the slow, methodical trend to the upside, I do have a hard time seeing this not being a contributing factor to that in that catch of
Well,
trade. And
finish your thought there,
I was gonna
Frankie.
say, and it's you got energy names, you got finance names in there, so
Yeah.
some of the cyclical names are really have been really nice, and some are picking up even more. So
Yeah, I agree. The breakout here, the mid-tier breakout here is really, really, really powerful on the weekly chart as well. It's got a couple days left in the week, but you close here, that'll be the first close above 2100 in quite some time. And there's no overextended conversation here. There's no overvalued conversation here. Looks pretty good on the Russell 2000 small and mid cap from a pure technical perspective. Frankie, where do you
yes,
want to go now?
let's just take a quick peek at the NASDAQ just because it's tech, right? And it really, I mean, it's been having some time off, right? Nothing too fancy here. Just chop at the top, right? Not volatile chop, much like the overall market, kind of that flaggy base pattern. It's such a weird place, I dialed in quite a few, and some still look great, like an Amazon break, right? But some look just really, really rough, like Adobe or maybe even Apple to a certain extent. So it's a very mixed bag in tech, and that I think helps explain kind of that slow grind, I guess, that we've had to the upside, but not too far off of the overall market, right? Just
No, not
not
too
the
far
hot
off.
place to be.
I mean, you don't have a bullish bias on the S&P and a bearish bias on the NASDAQ. No,
That would be
no, no,
odd.
no. You're
That would be
bullish on
odd.
both sides of the ledger. It's where do you see the market moving into the future? The market's always in a future conversation. And to me, in general, I mean, if you're looking at it just with pure fresh eyes, let's look at them from an ETF perspective. I got the NASDAQ in general slowing momentum in trend. I think you could argue a little bit of overall neutrality in the short term. You are seeing a slight increase in support with a bunch of chop over the last couple trading sessions in the NASDAQ type names. And so I'm not seeing momentum here. I'm not seeing well, momentum would be on the slowing side of the equation. Yes. For example, if you look at momentum in two capacities, if you look at momentum, Frank, you can look at momentum from the patterns of retracements from a trend perspective. So, for example, you get this nice little move from support at 395 up to 430, right? So you move up 35 points. And then you see this move from 416 up to that pivot of 437. You move up 31 points. And then you move up from that pivot at 324 to 345. You move up 30 points. And then you move up 322 to 349. You move up 17 points. You start to see it slow its momentum down. It's getting a little bit, it's like climbing a mountain, Frankie. The more you climb that mountain, every step gets a little bit harder to take, because not only are you really fresh at the bottom of the mountain and you're really excited and you got those fresh legs and your water's ready to go, but the terrain gets difficult, the air gets difficult. It becomes a little bit more difficult as you climb up that mountain and you start to slow down a little bit. And that's what you are seeing in general in the NASDAQ, is you are seeing some degree of slowing momentum in trend. And then when you look at it from a breakout perspective in the NASDAQ, here's a nice little clean breakout runs. It runs 4 or 5 trading sessions all the way up to the next higher level of resistance. Well, here's a breakout in February here, runs 3 days up until the top end of resistance. Here's a breakout run 2 days. Here's a breakout run 1 day. So whether you're looking at it from a pivot to pivot perspective or whether you're looking at it from a momentum on the breakout perspective, because breakouts are momentum based patterns, you're not seeing the additional momentum that you typically do like to see. And I do think that's because you're at late stage trend development here. And you have a general philosophy in the NASDAQ of, oh man, this thing has been just absolutely lights out for a long time. Maybe we're just trying to squeeze out a little bit of the orange here, just a little bit here in the NASDAQ. But you do have it in general as a slowing momentum environment, but not necessarily weakness. When you're looking at the spiders here, I don't think you have it as a slowing momentum environment. So you got the NASDAQ as a slowing momentum environment, but you got the S&P just kind of doing the same thing it has been doing, just a methodical drift up. Every time it gets in between that 9 and the 20 SMA, it does fairly good. The momentum is a little bit more consistent here. You see the NASDAQ from an overall trending perspective starting to do that, slowing momentum U-shape type thing, whereas you got that more consistent trend line here in the S&P 500. So I just in reflection against the market here, when the S&P looks a little bit more consistent, and especially from a momentum and trend perspective than the NASDAQ does, and that the NASDAQ names are the 25% of the S&P 500, what does that tell you? That tells you that names not associated to tech are the ones that are doing producing the best results out there right now. And so it's not like tech's dead. Like we're tackle trade. We're never going to say that about
No.
technology. But it does feel like in general, tech is slowing down just to a certain extent. And then when you come over to FinViz and you look at the categorizations of performance from an overall, how has all these spaces done in the last day? Obviously, tech just kind of doji here today. Nothing really to see. Utilities having a good day. Usually when utilities is having a good day, not everything else that you love is having a good day.
Yeah.
In the last week, technology is, again, not bad. Like we're not talking bearish here, but we're also talking about, a market that basically dojied in the last week, and technology's the worst performing area of the market in the last week. When you look at the last month performance, technology's kind of right there in the middle. But you know what's big green? Energy, basic materials, industrials, right? And
Yeah.
so that should tell you what names are consistent out there. And so right now, from a broad market, it's bull on bull type stuff right now going on. You're seeing a little bit of slowing momentum in the NASDAQ, and as that momentum is slowing down, it's not like that money's just sitting on the sidelines or going to some other asset class. It's rotating into other areas of the market. And quite frankly, it is not unheard of in a bull market to have areas of the market take time off and to have other areas of the market produce really, really good results. And that's kind of what I feel is the anatomy of a bull market, quite frankly.
Yeah. It's healthy.
And so I just kind of feel like in general, and again, split hairs a little bit because everything's kind of trending right now. But in general, I do got the NASDAQ slowing momentum a little bit. I got the S&P as a very consistent trend right now. And if the NASDAQ is going to slow its momentum, maybe the beneficiary of that slowing momentum is the Russell 2000.
Yeah, I could see it. I love it. Love that. Appreciate that detailed analysis. That was a good dive. I like where it went. That wasn't
I
where
was
I
not ready
thought.
for the dive, but I listen,
It was a
wherever the
good
dive
dive.
takes you, the dive takes you.
It does. Well, I appreciate it. I think the team probably does as well. Let's hop out of the realm of the indexes, Matt, talk a little bit about some commodities. Let's start with our buddy gold, though, right? I mean, you got to start with gold. Goodness gracious. It did not take long to try to dial in that 22, right? So
No, I mean, you were in a pretty decent pattern just here at the top end. I mean, any close above that would be a trigger point. But I said yesterday, and see if you agree with this, a close above 22 would be an add.
yeah.
If you're looking for a technical reason to add, I don't think it takes too long for us to find a fundamental, a behavioral, or an economic reason to add.
No.
So in terms of the technical reason, I mean, we're not closing here, and I do think the confirmation would be a weekly close here.
I
That's
think
another 2 trading sessions. What's your thoughts on gold?
yeah, I think the weekly is a really good call out. Actually, obviously, a daily close is good, a weekly close is better, type of stuff, right?
Mhm.
But it's sustainability, and it starts with a
Yeah.
day and goes into a week. So the weekly close would be a good signal. I don't think that, if someone said that I'm just looking at the daily close, I'd have no objection. I think they'd probably agree that
No.
weekly is stronger, but I don't think that that means that daily is bad. It is a nice look, and I think you're
Did it
right.
take off enough time on the weekly to say, okay, this is a legitimate break here?
I think so. I mean, I
I
would
think
have
so
liked a
too.
little bit more time, but of course, I'm going to say that, right?
Yeah.
I would have loved to have that 9 weekly converge with it, but it took enough time to let the 9 daily converge, which generally is fine by my standards. So I do think it took enough time. I do think it can have a leg here if it wants it, and it wants to close this breakout. I think the ad is a reasonable read. Anytime something breaks resistance, technically that's a show of strength, right? So if I'm looking at an ad on gold, that's going to be true on gold, just like it is on Apple or Home Depot or whatever, right?
Yeah. For me, it's let it open up and let it run.
Open up that risk
Like
graph
that's
a little bit. Yeah,
kind of where my head's at. Just let it open, let it run, let it breathe a little bit. Let's see what it wants to do in the short term. GDX also has a situation where, if gold breaks out of that 2200 and runs, GDX is going to punch into that 32 level,
32
which is where the
inevitable.
current coverage is. So I do think there would be a reduction of covered call analysis within GDX with this price movement. Would you agree with that?
I would. Yeah, it seems like if there's any legs on this gold breakout, GDX is running into that 32 level, and so acting accordingly makes a lot of sense. That'll be an interesting fight on GDX. I mean, you brought it up a lot, right? And it's taken a long time to develop, but it's the theoretical catch up, right? That when we're coming off of lower prices on the miners and getting an all-time high breakout on the gold, well, you can kind of see how the miners have responded over the past little while, right? You hope to see that continue, but first stop would be 32, right? But yeah, I do think you're going to have some covered call management decisions if there's any follow through on that, because on gold itself, because I do think that if that is the way it plays out, 32 being tested is probably the most likely thing in my eyes.
Yeah, I fully expected development at 30. We got it, although it was choppy and choppy and choppy.
It was choppy.
It was very choppy.
It can't all be super clean, right? Unfortunately,
we did get the development there, and it does look like it wants to punch up into that 32 handle. The 32 handle is what I would describe the mid tier on GDX here.
I would agree.
You look at that 32 handle here. You got the 200 right on top of it. You got many pivots of past. I don't have the same opinion at 32 that I do 30, for example, but I also didn't have the 200-day moving average on the weekly chart at 32 at 30 like we do at 32. So I just kind of feel, you look at the daily chart, you look at the weekly chart, you look at the pivot points on gold, you look at what gold is doing, it just feels like 32 is a magnet here on GDX. And so if you are looking at covered call mechanics, I'm opening it up until 32, and then at 32, I think you close it down again and wait on development at 32. There is opportunity above 32 from a directional perspective. I'm not sure how much opportunity there is from a directional perspective from the current price to 32. That's why for me, it's a covered call conversation. I'm letting that alleviate the covered call and letting growth occur. So 32 is kind of the next number we're anchoring against here on GDX.
I would 100% agree with that. And I think there's a good chance we're going to get to have that conversation, right? That's going to be a big...
all things being relatively equal, it does feel like we're going to have that conversation. I will say the dollar is going to have something to say about it.
Oh, yes.
The dollar is in a breakout situation. If it does break out, that's going to cap out the gold analysis a little bit. So, it's one of those weird things for me, Frankie, because I anchor so much against the dollar that when the dollar and gold both runs, I'm like, somebody's lying through their teeth right now. And
right.
I kind of feel like the dirty snake or the dirty frog that reminds me of back in my day there. But kind of is the dollar here a little bit more than gold. I think gold's telling the truth.
I would agree, but we'll see. Right? We'll see.
There is a battle at resistance, and that's not something you see all the time. A battle at resistance for both the dollar and gold. It is abnormal to a certain extent.
It is. It's not something that you expect on any given day.
I don't expect them both to continue to trend.
No. You expect them to either go away from one another or one drifts while the other one rolls the other way, right?
And this is fully my bias. Just being open about that, but fully my bias. But I would say, based on the things that I'm seeing here, I would say gold sticks, dollar holds.
That would be my read too. But again, that would also be my bias.
Yeah, so there's bias there. There's bias there.
But
there's no doubt about that. What about Bitcoin here, Frankie? What's your thoughts on the crypto asset class today?
Listen, it is way too wild for me right now. After that deeper but decent pullback, where volatility increased, me, I know you, those are generally not our pullbacks, right? Those aren't the ones that we are like, oh, that's the pullback for me. I love the fight. I love the fight. That's why I was never, against it. It's still too volatile and wide range candles for me, but it's Bitcoin, right? And so
Yeah.
that's not like that's the craziest thing. It's not like that's surprising that it has it. It does make it a little more difficult to catch. I do think, and I like where you went here on IBIT here. I do think, and it's one of those, I can't say that I'm interested in the breakout today because I kind of want to see those candles shrink a little bit going into the breakout in Bitcoin personally, but
Mhm.
operating under the assumption that they do, I do think it's on my breakout radar. It's not something I have a market order in on the breakout. I want to see a little better development personally, but I do like this where you went to on this IBID, because if we get that in Bitcoin, we're getting it in IBID, and that little
I
dialing
bet it's
in at the
cleaner.
top
Yeah.
is cleaner, right?
Mhm.
It is a little cleaner. That 42 breakout, like I said, I can't sign up for it yet,
Not
but
yet.
with
Not
a
yet.
little bit of decent development, say we run into it, do a little back and forth while these candles drop a little bit next Wednesday when we're talking in the halftime report, or maybe next Friday when we're talking here in the halftime report, that yes, that
Tell
would
me, A team tackle. Who here would sign up for that cup and handle on IBIT? Clean up 42, dial it in, increase support, shorten the journey into the breakout. I always hesitate calling for a pattern on Bitcoin because Bitcoin does not care
all you
about
can
my
do with it.
pattern
Oh
call
yes,
outs
but
oftentimes.
you have to, right? You have to know
But
what you
I'm not going
want.
to change. Yeah, I think it really helps me visualize what I need to see and what I need to be patient for, quite
Yeah,
frankly.
absolutely.
Patience plays. And we're in the middle of producing an awesome video series for our YouTube community at Tackle Trading called Decoding Buffett. The first video will go out this week. Way excited about the Decoding Buffett series. And one of the things that Buffett always preaches is patience.
Yeah.
And obviously he's not talking about the patience and technical development on a crypto asset class, for example. But I think those lessons that Buffett has taught us along the way can be applied in a lot of different aspects of the financial
Absolutely.
markets. And patience in technical development, I think, is extremely, extremely important. And so you're right, Frankie. If you were going to trade the retracement, you would have to market order that thing against probability analysis because it was choppy as
It
all
was
get out.
choppy and
And
volatile.
then
Yeah.
it's been choppy over the course of the improving condition. And so it's one of those situations where it just never gave the real good development here, which means you missed out on the retracement. That's fine. We're going to miss out on retracements. If you miss out on the retracement, what do you need to see? I need to see 42 get dialed in the same way you need to see 42 get dialed in, which means you either need to see a high base at 42 or you need to see a cup and handle going into 42 so we can front run that bad boy. Personally, I'd rather front run it, but this is not a great technical scenario to front run any breakout. You got chop everywhere. It's up and down, up and down. There's not a probability edge here. So I think Bitcoin's certainly on the radar over the course moving into next week, but I do think it's a next week conversation, not a this week one.
Yeah, if it breaks this week, I'm happy for the Bitcoin
I'll
holders,
cheer. I'll definitely cheer.
yeah, I think we need at least
Same
a
team,
week.
guys. Same team.
Same team week, but you could see the path, and it is important to identify what you want, know why you want it, right, and you get
Yeah.
it or you don't, right, but it helps a tremendous amount. I'm
Now,
feeling
now for you and I, this is a directional conversation on IBIT, but our good friend Reno, he said, nah, you guys, what are you talking about? Just smash that cash flow button on Riot. And I just wanted to bring up Riot for because that cash flow button has been paying out
it
recently
has
on
been paying
Riot.
out, and Riot is one of those. And
Like
the
the
nice thing about
development
these
there on
names
Riot.
is you can get credit for them, so
Oh,
you
you
get paid for your
listen,
boldness.
there is no problem finding credit in certain asset classes right now. That is not the problem. There's no doubt about that.
No. And the nice thing about Riot is, from what I can gather, it's pretty much always there. You always get premium on. Go
Pretty
figure,
good trend
right?
line. I don't see a directional edge yet, though.
Yeah, I would agree with
Yeah.
that. But yeah, I'd have no objection to the to
Coin
smashing the
was in the
cash
news
flow.
today. Speaking of Bitcoin asset classes,
Goodness gracious. So that
choppy
was
everywhere there too.
choppy,
Yeah.
decent momentum.
Where do you want to go?
Man. Well, we went to church early today. I'm feeling extra pious. I bet you are too. So let's take a
I feel
quick.
ready.
Let's go play in. Let's go play in the crude. Just chopping at the top, right? Nothing. We've got the break, right? We're just now in that drift. We haven't taken off in crude. Like if you played the breakout, I'm sure you probably were hoping that it was going to kind of take off, right? But you did get the break. You're continuing to hold the break. I don't really see much when I look at this, and I think the crude story is best told for the way I and probably you and many at Tackle Trading are looking at it is through energy eyes. I think really, if that's where you are, it really is on the weekly chart. That the crude story is really important to you, and to me, this is how you want it to be. It broke out. It's continuing that grind up. It hasn't, YOLO'd like you maybe wanted if you played directly the crude break, but I that's kind of a good old fashioned mid tier break, right? I mean, that's kind of what one of the things you expect to see. At least I do. So
I got the mid-tier break at 86 here on 84 86 here on crude oil.
So you're going up into that one. So
yeah, to me, this is done the mid-tier. This is what mid-tier breaks do. This is why we were so excited about energy and the potential of energy was the catch-up story on energy. And so I don't think many people at Tackler are surprised that we got the catch-up here. That was kind of the expectation was, I mean, Frankie, I remember talking about this in Delta Dogs multiple different weeks that the philosophy here, guys, on a mid-tier breakout is it will achieve the 52-week high. That's the philosophy on a mid-tier breakout. And so it's certainly not in a swing trade usually, right? It's usually more of a position trade analysis. And energy just caught a little bit of momentum that I'm not going to be too upset about energy catching momentum. I will say the weekly chart here, and energy's not done anything wrong, but I see this as a just constant ongoing conversation until we have some degree of pattern development at that 9 EMA. In general, I would not be surprised at all to if in a week from now, next Wednesday, you and I are talking about a multiple time frame breakout potential here. It would not surprise me in the slightest to see a little bit of consolidation over the course of the next week and a half, as you're dialing in this really impressive trend that we've seen on energy. But this really impressive trend is
a lot of resistance. That's some real resistance on XLE.
This is not a weak area of resistance. It is an extremely strong area of resistance. And so let's see how that plays out. But in general, it's an ongoing conversation for energy. I haven't seen anything at the top end of this trend to suggest that this trend is over. So let's just see if we can get some pattern developments at the key areas of resistance that we're currently looking at. But in general, remember the conversation on slowing momentum that we had on the NASDAQ?
Yep.
You're looking at the opposite of that.
Yes, you're looking at increasing momentum.
You're looking at increasing momentum, and increasing momentum does not suggest that you're going to rinse and repeat the initial movement. That's not what it suggests. What it does suggest is you're going to get another leg, but that leg will be a slowing momentum leg based on that one. And so you have a lot of confidence to go into this pattern saying, yeah, resistance going to hold maybe in the short term, but ultimately we do believe that resistance will break out of. And so it's just a matter of, can we get development at that key level that we've been waiting on development? And so far, I don't think I don't think energy's done anything wrong in the last couple of days to come off that analysis.
No, not at all. It needed to dial this in. It's a good situation where you got mid-tier on crude, dialing in major multiple time frame in the energy space. It's a good scenario. I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about that multiple time frame breakout not too far down the road as well. And you can always sign me up for a breakout. You can definitely sign me up for a breakout in energy these days. Well, Maddie, that is going to do it for the Skyline, my friend. I know it's a big news day. I know you're doing some heavy lifting today. But I'm gonna turn it over to you for earnings and stocks in the news, my friend.
And it is one of those days. We are going to be done 15 minutes in front, Frankie. That's fantastic. It's one of those weeks. GameStop. GameStop comes out today, earnings obviously, dealing with a slight miss on GameStop here. Frankie, I want to get your technical thoughts. Meme and retail might be having something to say over the next couple months. That it's going to be interesting to see if meme comes back with any degree of flair over the course of the next couple months. That's going to be an ongoing story. We'll report on it in the halftime report if we see it play out. But meme, we usually don't spend a lot of time on. It's not usually our thing at Tackle Trading. We like talking about Warren Buffett and covered calls a little too much to embrace the meme mentality that much, but we do get interested in it
Sure.
the same way everybody else does as well. So if we do start to see it, we will talk about it. But GameStop had a chance to kind of add to that a little bit here today, and they just didn't. Quite frankly, just a miss on earnings here, Frankie. 22 cents against 25. Revenue came in at 179. Expectation was 2.07 billion. That represented a 20% revenue decrease year over year. Just dealing with some good old-fashioned misses here on both the EPS and the revenue front. Gap down analysis near support, but not at that ultimate level of support here. Frankie, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll probably see a next quarter GameStop.
Yeah, feels that way, doesn't it?
It's a fairly tight window, and they still have their believers, right? I still generally don't love the idea of betting against them. Just doesn't mean I'm betting on them, right? And I think just like last quarter, I'll just cheer for it from the sidelines. I have a hard time seeing anything that gets too exciting for either one of us in the immediate future. The breakdown is just a stone throw away from a real low, right? So really tight window. You got a ton of junk overhead. You're gonna have to do a lot of dialing in to get reversal, and I hope it does. If it does, we'll run into it, right? But I don't see any scenario. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't talk about GameStop again for 3 months when you're bringing up its earnings next time. That would be, I think, my most likely scenario in my head.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. Their earnings did nothing to make you want to track it.
Didn't change that story, right?
Technically, the only thing I see is the potential bear breakdown at 12, and I don't have interest in shorting GameStop. So
exactly, it's just one of
like
those.
I kind of feel like you nailed it there. It's like, all right, we'll see you in a quarter from now. If you want to wake up, we'll wake up on next quarter. All right, Frankie, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about Carnival Cruise here today, as they're in the headlines as well. They got the slight beat on EPS, came in at 14 cents. That's a negative 14 cents. Expectation was a negative 18 cents. Revenue, basically, I'm pretty certain a slight beat on revenue. I'm trying to read my own writing over here for a second there, Frankie.
Sometimes it's tough, right?
Revenue, I'm fairly certain we're dealing with a beat on revenue, a slight beat on revenue, because you had a beat on EPS and you had a beat on revenue. Revenue did go up 22% year over year, which is a good thing for Carnival as well. They had a mixed guidance report, and that's kind of why you're seeing a little bit of chop here. Is a little bit of a gap down, fight back up, is because you did have a mixed guidance report on Carnival as well. They slightly increased their quarterly guidance while they slightly decreased their yearly guidance. I don't really have anything to say on Carnival here. What's your thoughts?
I do like the bounce back. I do like the general.
You're a bigger fan of a bounce back than I am on the earnings. Yeah,
I am. I do like it. I like when you had a chance to spin out and it goes the other way. I like that it's
get the
kind
Bears
of
excited just to yank all their hopes and dreams
it right
away.
out from underneath them, right? It's hard out there for a bear, and I don't really mind the dialing in. I'm going to call it 18, but I think it's probably a little shy of 18. These are tough candles to build a trade on, right? Because of that volatility, you have no choice but to go intraday. But if you could dial in this just under 18 zone, I mean, it's Carnival, so I'm not going to shoot for the moon here, but I do expect that we work into these highs in the 1950s range. So I could see a scenario where if you dial in this chop at this zone, it's a short window, but that's okay. Not everything needs to be a home run, right? By any stretch of the imagination. That's why we have to dial it in, because we have to have proper, decent stop loss placement to always, right? But especially when you're dealing with a relatively tight window. But I mean, it's $1.50-ish window on an $18 stock. It's not like it's nothing. So I am going to keep it in my watch list. I do expect that we do test those. That would be an interesting one, right, Maddie? That's the one, that break
Yeah,
of those
I have
levels.
legitimately zero interest in anything you said on that short-term trade on
You're no
Carnival, and I'm
fun.
not trying to be critical. I'm not. I'm just saying, like, the real conversation is the
That's the real
1960-20
trade.
conversation.
Yeah, that's the
That's the
real. I mean, that's a
real
big.
conversation.
Yes, that's a big multiple time frame scenario. I would agree
Yeah.
with that. I would say, where's your sense of adventure on the window between
Uh,
here and there?
Listen, none with Carnival. Where,
You're
let's
not
bring up
cruising.
Boeing and say the same thing. Hey, Matt, where's your sense of adventure here
Uh,
on Boeing there? None, zero. I
I
have no
heard.
sense of adventure on that. None. I have no
I
fundamental
think you
opinion
owe
on it.
Carnival an apology.
Um,
They don't deserve to be
they
thrown.
might have to wait a little bit on
They
that
don't deserve
apology.
to be thrown into that bin.
You're right. Okay, I do apologize for Carnival for putting it into the same sentence of as Boeing.
That's
Yes,
fair. Yes, you don't
yes.
have to like the
Which
Carnival chart,
should tell
but
you how much Boeing has fallen when you have to apologize to Carnival of all sakes just for putting it. I kid, guys. There, I kid. All right, Frankie, CTAS. Yeah, I got a little gap and runner here, Frankie. Well, let's see what your thoughts are on technically here. On Cintos here comes in at 384. Expectation was 356. Revenue came in at 2.4. Expectation was 2.39. Revenue up 10% year over year. They also had a slight uptick in forward-looking guidance. Not going to give the hat trick because, quite frankly, hat tricks you got to
earn
listen.
it.
You got to earn it. And let me say one thing about earnings. All earnings have low barred expectations. All of them do. Every single earnings. This is the game Wall Street loves playing. This is the game that the corporations love playing. They love to come out on earnings day and be like, look at how good we are. They love to pat themselves on the back. And the only way they know how to do that is make sure all of our expectations are as low as humanly possible so that their mediocre work can get praised. And I kind of kid there, but
But
you get the point. They'd like
yes,
to low bar those earnings results. And so to get a hat trick, to me, it's not just the beat increase in guidance, which CTAS just did. They beat on EPS, they beat on revenue, and they increased forward-looking guidance. But to me, and this is more of a subjective thing because let's like hat trick is kind of a tackle trading thing.
yeah,
But to me, you got to beat it with some degree of veracity to remove the low barred expectations from the conversation because the low barred expectations are always going to be part of the conversation on earnings results. And so the beats got to be sufficient enough. And it's not like, oh, you got to beat 10% here and 5% on revenue. You see it when you see it, right? Yeah,
yes,
and a 2 cent beat on EPS, slight beat on the revenue side, good numbers. Yeah, good numbers, good earnings report. Don't want to argue with the price action here today because this is a good report. I just wanted to clarify hat trick treatment because I got a question on it the other day a little bit.
yeah.
So Frankie, technically here, this thing left the station. What's your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean,
And look at that
impressive,
9 weekly.
but you got to dial in a big bar. That is probably different reasons, but probably not for me anytime soon.
The
I
scenarios where you would short-term trade CTAS are not very much.
Yeah, things can always develop, and a lot of times they do, right? But if you can't see the easy path, it's like,
Um,
and I
it,
don't see
it's
the easy path.
it's not just a technical conversation.
No, it's
It's
one
a
of those guys.
conversation on price tag on stock and option liquidity.
Yep.
That's why you're not making a trade on CTAS when you will have other scenarios very similar that you could have liquid
But you
options
have
with a
lots
better
more.
price
Yeah.
tag on the stock
No pun
as well.
intended, more
So
options.
yeah, not a bad nothing bad against CTAS. Just same thing with
Just,
all these high dollar
yeah.
companies that don't have great liquidity and options. What you
Split.
will learn is the same thing CMG is going to learn here soon.
Yep.
Liquidity matters to us.
It matters a lot. You
Yep.
split, and you're gonna see a whole new slew of names. Maddie's not gonna just be
100%.
buying your burritos. He's gonna be as a burrito bowls, I believe, that you pick up there.
It's
But
definitely the bull.
I'm looking
Definitely the
forward
bull.
to that split. And yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. I see these names that come up, and I'm like, I know if they don't come up, it's not because maybe they don't technically deserve. They just never fall into my liquidity criteria, and
Yep.
it's important to have. it's
All right,
important to
Frankie,
have that.
that's all I got on the day. Oh, yeah. Coinbase, very quickly. A federal judge rules that Coinbase is a exchange and not just a bank. Coinbase was trying to fight that categorization. I'm not sure the investors care too much about how a federal judge or how we categorize Coinbase versus an exchange versus a bank. And I say that because what Coinbase is up 14,000% in the last like 6 months.
It's
So
yeah,
I'm not
it's
sure the investors care about
it
the news.
seems more of a news story than newsworthy.
Yes,
maybe not, but that's
good way
what
to put it. Good way to
what
put it.
out of the bill goes. Well, Maddie, as you went through those earnings, it got me thinking. It is March 27th, which means we're only a couple of weeks away
From the
to
Masters. I know.
yes, from the Masters. Gosh,
Mhm.
I wish that's where my head went. I thought
Yep.
about that.
Couple weeks.
Only a couple of weeks. What makes that's it. April is an exciting time. You get the Masters.
I do. I'm so excited about the Masters.
We get the NFL draft. All right. Market
You're more
tends to be
excited
pretty
about the
good.
draft. I'm more excited about the Masters, but I do enjoy the draft as well.
I'm most excited about WrestleMania. I was saving the
Oh,
best
you
for
get
last.
WrestleMania?
Yeah,
In April?
April, generally in April. It's not always, but generally it falls into
Well, we got some
that.
fun
So
things going on there.
So some fun things. Yeah, I'm gonna test the Step channel, see how much they've been paying attention to the world of wrestling, Maddie, and let them pick winners and offer I don't know a virtual prize. So for whoever picks
We have baseball. Oh man, it's springtime. We
it
got
is
baseball. We
springtime.
got I love springtime
I
because
do
you get the
too.
combination
A
of
lot of good
opening
stuff.
day, which is just that's a day.
That's a day. Even
Election
I
day
don't
and
like
opening
baseball,
day
but
should be
even I
federal
get excited about
holidays.
opening
They'll
day.
have a federal holiday for anything. Why can't we get a federal holiday for those 2 days? Like opening day, like even if you don't go to the game, like opening day, man, love opening day.
Yeah, I respect that. I don't ever watch baseball on opening day, but
It's
I
the
do.
only day where I have any hope for the Oakland A's.
Well, listen, hope is important. Hope is
It
important.
only lasts for 12 hours.
Well, listen, welcome to life as a Bronco fan.
Yeah. Well, there you go. There you go.
You're not alone. You are not alone. Well, Maddie, as always, my friend, appreciate you having me and walking us through these markets. Always a pleasure to hang out with you and members of the team. I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. And if you are not yet a member of Team Tackle, right where Maddie is at is the best place to get started. You just head over to tackletrading.com, get started with a free 15-day trial. Come check out our morning lounges, our evening shows, our coaches show, our cash flow club, our weekend reports. We're always doing a lot of fun stuff. If you love trading, if you love good people, you're going to love Tackle Trading. Come on over, give us a shot. I think you'll find it to be a fantastic home. And with that, team, I will see you. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Maddie, my man, take us out.
Yeah. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on the Hump Day edition of the Halftime Report here today. If you are looking for an amazing community of like-minded investors, come hang out with us at tackletrain.com. You can go there to the website, like Frank says. And Bobby, the A's and Guardians. Oh man, we're going to either get a 2-1 game or a 13-12 game. And then that's the only two scenarios. 2-1, 13-12. I'm sure Bobby and I will say something about it in Discord. But if you do need us, hit us up at team@tackletrading.com. Everybody have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.